Dynamics can be broadly classified in two broad approaches with which we can solve. So the first approach is Newton-Euler approach, and the second approach is the Euler-Lagrange approach. So there are other approaches like Lennox matrices using bond graph methods also, but the first two ones are the one which are very prominently being used worldwide for any kind of dynamics. We'll start with the first one, Newton-Euler formulation. It's based on rate of change of linear momentum should be equal to summation of all the forces acting on the system, and d by dt of rate of change of angular momentum, that is based on summation of all the movements acting on the system. So the first one is the Newton's contribution based on the Newton's second law. The second one is the Euler's contribution. So that's why the collectively this whole formulation is called as a Newton-Euler formulation. So before going to multi-body dynamics, we need to understand what are the steps, what is the concept, and what is the procedure for a single degree of freedom systems, most commonly being represented by a simple spring mass damper system. So like we are having a mass, we are having a spring K, we are having a damper, and this mass can move in the x direction and under the excitation of this force F of t. So now there are three main elements. The first one is the mass element or the inertia element, which is supposed to displace. Then the spring element, the function of this element is to oppose the displacement occur in the mass. So that's a function of displacement. And the function of the damper is to oppose the velocity. So any single degree of freedom can represent many examples in the nature. So like we can say, if it could be a suspension system, it could be a car model, it could be a plane model, it could be a train model, it could be a model of a building. So like you are having a building having multiple floors. So this building can be represented by simple spring mass damper system. Here it could be like Burj Khalifa, so where there is a huge tower. So this tower can be represented by again single degree of freedom system. So single degree of freedom systems are extremely important from the point of view of its simplicity, and with which we can relate many examples in day-to-day life. To develop its equation of motion, typically write the equations like this way: mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx equal to f of t. But that is not the correct way to write it. We have to follow the procedure systematically. Eventually we'll come to this equation only, but we should know clearly that what are the sequence of steps which are involved to reach at this equation. Let's draw this figure again. So we are having this x of t, and then you are having f of t. This is the external force applied to the system. So only thing we need to understand is what is the meaning of this x of t. The x of t is a displacement, but it is given a specific name. It's called as the displacement from the mean position or the displacement from the static equilibrium position. The first step in this is we need to develop its free body diagram, where we isolate the system and will represent all the forces acting on this. Like there is a force F of t. As the body is grounded, so there is no mg force. So as the body moves to the right, the spring will try to oppose the body in the left hand side. This is called as the force due to the spring, and because the spring tries to oppose the motion or displacement of the body, that's why it's kx. Whereas the damper, the function of the damper is to oppose the velocity, that is cx dot. So secondly, we need to apply Newton's second law, the rate of change of linear momentum. So in this case we have m, and the velocity of this body is x dot is equal to summation of all the forces acting on the system. These are external forces. So now we have to have this assumption, otherwise we have the derivative as m dot x dot and mx double dot. But we are assuming over here, because this is a normal derivative, in such situations where we cannot ignore the rate of change of mass also. So this is under the assumption that in 95% of the cases the mass of the body under consideration will remain constant. So in that case, this term, the rate of change of mass, will go to 0. But otherwise, if it is not being mentioned, like in the case of a missile which is going to hit the aircraft, the mass of the missile is changing drastically. So in that particular example, you cannot take that as the assumption. So in most of the cases, the mass of the system is considered constant. So that's why we have this. So then you have mx double dot. So if you now see the free body diagram, all the forces toward the right hand side will take it as positive. So F of t, that is external force, minus Kx, the spring force, minus Cx dot, the damper force. So then the step C, we'll say collecting the terms. So we have mx double dot plus Cx dot plus Kx equal to F of. So this is what we have as the standard equation. Now let's reorient the body and let's try to see what will happen when the body is something like this. In the vertical position, where thus everything will remain the same. Now if you draw its free body diagram, so same thing will come. So you are having a Ft force, Kx force, Cx dot force. Any other force will come, gravity force will come, mg, right? So now if we again write the equation of motion, in that case we have F of t plus mg minus Kx minus Cx dot. So in that case our equation becomes mx double dot plus Cx dot plus Kx equal to F of t plus mg, right? This is what we'll get as the equation. This equation is wrong. The wrong part lies that there is no mg term will come. So the reason lies over here because the displacement mentioned over there is the displacement from the static equilibrium configuration. So where this mg goes, let's try to see. You have a mass suspended on a spring. Spring will vibrate and the system will come to rest after some time, and thus this delta static will be the deformation in the spring. So if we draw the free body diagram now, so you can see mg equal to k delta static. So that is the static deflection. At static equilibrium, we have mg equal to k delta static, that will come. So now if you further draw the spring by xt amount, so now the spring will open by this much amount, xt more. So now if you draw the free body diagram, you will see because of this force due to which this xt happens, the spring will actually elongate by x plus delta static total. Delta static is already there because of mass m, and now x displacement is there because of this force. So now you will see this forces are opposite. So ft plus mg minus kx minus k delta static. But from the static equilibrium, we can always cancel k delta static with mg. This will happen every time. So whenever there is a spring attached, so the mg force will be compensated automatically. So we need not to take into account the mg force. So the equation of motion will remain the same, mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx equal to f of t. So let's see the general case. The general case is the one where the spring mass damper system is on inclined wedge. So now you have this system having mass m on wedge where the angle is phi. So you have mg force. So this angle is phi. So we know this component is mg cos phi. This component is mg sin phi. And there is a spring and damper with same thing k and c. At the static equilibrium, mg sin alpha will be balanced by k delta static. So what will happen? Now we have three cases. In all those cases, the equation of motion will remain the same. If phi equal to 0, that resolves the first case when the system is horizontal. When phi is equal to 90, that resolves to the second case when the system was vertical. And when phi is arbitrary, this resolves to the third case when the system is inclined. So this phi is generalizing, basically 0, 90 degree or arbitrary angle, but we have to take care. So whenever there is a spring either vertical or inclined in the system, that spring will take care of the static loading. So the mg force will never come into count. That is the significance of saying that we are taking the displacement after achieving the static equilibrium conflict. So we'll switch to multi-degree of freedom system. For the timing, let's take 2 degree of freedom systems. From this we can generalize and we can go to the multi-degree of freedom. So let's take the example, same spring mass damper system. So we are having a body m1 there is a body M2, there are two bodies. This kind of system can represent something like a tram in Amsterdam, or there are trams in Kolkata also. This displacement is x1, this displacement is x2. The force applied on the first body is F1T, the force applied on the second body is F2T. And let's say there are three springs involved, K1, K2 and K3, and then there are three dampers involved, C1, C2 and C3. So before going this type of question, we have to take, first thing is the assumption. So we have to take into account which type of case we are considering. Either x1 is greater than x2 or x1 is less than x2. So this will help us to draw the forces and their arrows or their directions in the correct manner. As I mentioned, the first step is we need to draw the free body diagram. So in free body diagram for multi-degree of freedom systems, especially the systems where there is a coupling existing between the two, so it's always better to draw both the free body diagrams simultaneously. So this is a body 1, M1, and there is a body 2, M2. Let's see the first body, M1. So the first body, we can say when the body goes to the right, the spring K1 is under tension. So it will try to pull the body back towards the left. That's why that's the force Kx. So whatever is the direction of x, the same is the direction of damper Cx dot. That is the one. And if we now see state of spring K3, because that is also a decoupled spring only applied to body 2. So when under the influence of force 2, this body M2 moves to the right, the spring, what is the state of spring K3? That spring is compressed. So when the spring is compressed and the tendency of the spring is to regain its original position, this will push the body backwards in the left hand side. And the force is K3x2, and the force acting on this due to damper is C3x2 dot. And certainly there are two forces acting on the system. F1 is also there and F2 is also there. These are the forces due to external force. Now comes the tricky one, the spring K2. The spring K2 is a coupled spring because its both the free ends are connected to two movable objects. Whereas in the case of spring K1, one end is fixed, one end is attached to the body. Same is true with spring K3, where one end is attached to the body M2, the other end is fixed. Whereas in the case of spring K2, both the ends are attached to two movable bodies M1 and M2. That's why in order to detect its state, we have to make this assumption. So let's take this assumption first. X1 is more than X2. So now you can assume if X1 is more than X2, let's assume both you are having two bodies and both the bodies are moving towards the right. So what will happen after a period of time? Because X1 is more than X2, so both the bodies while moving towards the right will come closer to each other. The distance between the bodies will keep on reducing. So which means the spring K2 is under compression. So when the spring K2 is under compression, it will apply a outward force K2, as X1 is more than X2, so X1 minus X2. So that's why these two arrows pointing outwards, their direction is very important. Same thing is true for the damper. Whatever is the direction of spring, the same is the direction of C2, X1 dot minus X2 dot. If we have taken this as the assumption, so I'll draw the free body diagram again in red color. So the same thing will happen, M1, M2. Nothing will be different for the spring K1 and nothing will be different for the spring K3. All those forces will remain same. The only difference lies in the middle spring, where now there is assumption different. Now because X2 is greater than X1, so when both the bodies are going towards the right and X2 is having more displacement, you can see the distance between the bodies will keep on increasing. So as the distance between the bodies will keep on increasing, the spring K2 will come under tension. So once it will come under tension, it will pull both the bodies inwards. And the amount of force is K2 into X2 minus X1. And same thing with the damper, C2 into X2 dot minus X1 dot. Now you can see eventually either this force and this force, there is a minus difference and there is a change in arrow sign. So eventually whatever assumption you will take into account, it will end up with the same force. So because the equation of motion is a property of the system, and this property does not depend upon any initial condition or any assumption. So whether you take x1 more than x2 or x1 less than x2, only the arrows will change and the values will change, but eventually the force applied by the spring and the equation of motion in both the cases will remain the same. So let's consider the first case back and try to derive the equation of motion of the first case. So I'll go back with the black pen. So go to step B, where we have to apply Newton's second law. Newton's second law says d by dt of m1 x1 dot rate of change of linear momentum of the first body should be equal to the force F1, and all the arrows towards the left, so all are negative, so minus K2 x1 minus x2 minus C2 x1 dot minus x2 dot minus K1 x1 minus C1 x1 dot. So on collecting the terms, we have m1 x1 double dot. So we will have C term with x1. So you can see there is a term C1 x1 dot minus and C2 x1 dot minus. Both will come plus, and C1 plus C2 we can combine, minus C2 x2 dot plus, so K1 plus K2 times x1 minus K2 x2 equal to F1. So this is the equation of motion of the first body. So we'll go to the next. So the free body diagram of the second, from there we can find out that d by dt of rate of change of linear momentum of the second body equal to minus k3 x2 minus c3 x2 dot plus k2 into x1 minus x2 plus c2 into x1 dot minus x2 dot, and there is external force in the right hand side F2. So now we'll collect the terms, m2 x2 double dot minus c2 x1 dot plus c2 plus c3 times x2 dot minus k2 x1 dot, oh sorry, not x1 dot, k2 x1 plus k2 plus k3 x2 equal to F2. So this is the equation of motion of the second body. Now we can write them into the matrix form. So let me write the first equation first, which we have derived in the last slide. So that equation was m1 x1 double dot, then you have c1 plus c2 times x1 dot minus c2 x2 dot, then you have k1 plus k2 times x1 minus k2 x2 equal to F1. So that is the equation of motion what we had derived in the last slide for the first body. Now we'll see for the scalar part, we have the equation like mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx equal to F. So now for multi-degree of freedom, the structure of equation will remain the same. So instead of scalar m's, we have now matrices mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx equal to F vector. So now let's try to see. Now we have a vector of accelerations, we have vector of velocities, we have the vector of displacements equal to F1, F2. Take into account the first equation, we can see there is a contribution from acceleration side m1. So m1 will come over here, but there is no contribution from x2 double dot, so that part goes to 0. Then comes to C matrix, damping terms. First term will come as C1 plus C2, and the second term will come as minus C2. Here it is K1 plus K2 minus K2. Then the second equation of motion, m2 x2 double dot, there is only one term, so 0 m2. Then you have minus C2 plus C3, and then you have minus K2 plus K3. So now we need to understand this is called as vector of displacements. This is called as vector of external forces. This is called as the mass matrix or inertia matrix. This one is called as the matrix containing all the coefficients of damper. This is called a damping matrix. And finally, the matrix containing all the stiffnesses is called as stiffness matrix. And the size of matrix is typically 2 by 2. That depends upon the number of degrees of freedom of the system. So if the number of degrees of freedom are n, so the size of all these three matrices are n by n.